Hurling on Off the Ball.
With Board Gosh Energy. Hurling. It's anyone's game.
All right, it finally feels like the Hurling Championship is ready to explode. Anthony Nash, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. How are you?
I'm great. How are you keeping?
This is the bit where it's going to actually feel like Championship because the summer weather is going to be out. The grass will be a little bit drier. The ball will fly a little bit further, and there'll be blood on the tracks by the end of play on Sunday, potentially.
Yeah, it's a massive weekend. To be honest, I know people will go on to them going on about it again. It's been a massive couple of weekends in Munster hurling, especially. Obviously Waterford are gone, but now it's down 4-3, and all four are going to fancy their chances. Obviously the one big game up in Leinster is the Kilkenny-Dublin one, which has its own significance as well. But after this weekend, it's going to be it'll be very interesting to see whether the All-Ireland champions are still in number one, and if someone has already reached the Munster final.
So the Tipperary team shows a significant number of changes, and very specifically the goalkeeper. So Rhys Shelly comes in, Owen Connolly comes in, Mark Keogh comes in, Bonner Marr is starting according to the team that's been published. Jason Ford is out obviously with a hamstring injury. Johnny Ryan, Sean Ryan are also not picked, but Barry Hogan drops to the bench as well. You must know Ryan Shelly pretty well, do you?
Yeah, Rhys was in UL with us, and he actually started the campaign. And then with injury, we were very fortunate. We've two of the best young goalkeepers in Ireland with Dean Mason and himself, and it was very close between the two. But Rhys has got exceptionally accurate puckouts, especially, and he has the bravery to pick them off. So I'm wondering, but then I spoke about Barry Hogan's puckouts. Was it against Limerick in the league or someone like that before? I suppose there must be something. They must have had a decision made earlier on the year that maybe Rhys was carrying an injury, but it was a bit of a surprise to me to see him. Not surprising talent-wise. He's an exceptionally good goalkeeper, and Liam has obviously worked very close with him before. But I'm not so sure what Barry has done so wrong to lose his spot.
So sometimes, as you know, there's an overreaction to a goalkeeper conceding a load of goals in a game. Is this what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. You just don't know. I think, look, the talk of Tipperary is that they've huge belief in Rhys. And I saw briefly firsthand this year that he has, as I said, he's number one. He's got the bravery. He's a very confident young fella, and his puckouts are bullet-like, to be fair. So whether it's that and the fact that he can do all of these things as well against the Limerick team who set up exceptionally well for puckouts, and maybe Liam just had him in his head that he was going to be his number one, and he came back in. Like a manager, especially when he's worked with someone before, has huge faith and trust. We see it an awful lot in soccer where a manager would have gone and brought a goalie always with him. There was even wasn't it Paddy Kenny with Sheffield United? If you go back that far, that whenever he was what's his manager's name again? Neil Warnock, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Then Neil would always go and take him, But Liam seems to have huge time, and even I remember speaking to Fergal Horgan, the referee, and he was talking about how high Rhys Shelly was held in regard. So I think they just see probably him as the number one goalkeeper going forward.
So it's not that big a deal, is it, when we were just chatting about it before we came on, going in the middle of the championship to change your goalkeeper, there's a couple of things at play. It's a big decision, or else they've decided that they're going to experiment a little bit this week, knowing full well that they're going to beat Waterford next weekend. That was one of the theories put forward.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah,
I feel that you want to drag Limerick into the deep water this weekend, make them gasp for life, and see if they are still Limerick.
Yeah, I'd be agreeing with you on that one. I don't think that Liam is going out saying, "Oh, we'll give this a go." I think Liam's going out to try and win. And do you know what? Bar Limerick supporters, everyone else in the country is hoping the same. You know what I mean? That he's really trying to do it. But it's just a fact. If I didn't know Rhys, I would be kind of saying, "Oh, Jesus, is a huge show." But having talked to people from Tipperary, having worked with him, this could be just a long-term project that they're saying, look, this is it. We find out whether you're good enough in the championship or not, and off you go. But he is a very talented goal. They're very lucky because I've time for Barry Hogan as well. But I think that it's more smelling to me that Liam has always wanted him as his goalkeeper, and now he's just going to give him his chance.
One of the things about the accuracy of a puck out, it seems, is that you have to be, you're part of a chain. You can be incredibly accurate. You can hit the ball where it was supposed to go, but your man makes the wrong run, and all of a sudden it's dropping nicely into the hand of an uncontested halfback or a midfielder.
Jeez, Ger, I thought I liked you before this show. Now I'm starting to love you. This is just, I agree with you. It's always the outfielder's fault, and we can go on record and say that. Yeah, like that's what I always do with teams. Like the first thing I say is when I'm doing puckouts with teams, this is the system. This isn't the goalkeeper. Nor like the goalie can be wrong, and the forward can be right, and it breaks down, or like you just said, vice versa. And but it's always going to be like the older fashioned people. What's he doing pucking the ball there? Little do they know that something has broken down in that chain. Like but it's 100%. It's a system. It's a team game. It's like a set play and. Like if the quarterback doesn't throw the ball right or the wide receiver doesn't make his run properly, then it's not going to work, But yeah, it is definitely a chain of events. Yeah.
So how do you know he's exceptionally accurate? What gives you over a period of time, everything works the way it's supposed to? The ball always goes where it's supposed to, and sometimes the runs don't. But that's where the aim was. Like, do you do
just
that?
Training?
Is it? Yeah.
Just training. You see him in training, just basically his trajectory of puckouts. As I said, we two of the best young goalkeepers, like Dean is on the Kilkenny panels and he's puckouts excellent as well. And the unfortunate thing for him was Ballyhale's success that he wasn't around with us for long, And but then Rhys is his trajectory of his puckout is very strong. He's got a massive belt of a ball as well. But the one thing I'd say a manager might like about him is not only is he brave and accurate to go short with a trajectory that's lower that can get there faster, he also has that relieving big one that can go beyond the half back line if needed. He's also a great free taker and a penalty taker. So I think it's just, as I said, it was just before I met him, I wouldn't have known that much about him. But having met him and having spoken to a few people from Tipperary, he is being held in very high regards and probably the potential long-term goalkeeper going forward.
Big TikTok star as well, it turns out.
Is he? I didn't know that. No, that's not what I am anyway. Do you know what? He's a good old. He's a very confident young fella. He's a funny old kid as well. But geez, aren't all kids nowadays? That's just showing my age here now. That I wouldn't even know. Jesus, we've students here in school who were up to the All-Ireland final. They were telling me about stuff that's going up on TikTok. I was like, Jesus, well above my head.
There's definitely going to be a generation who have already a massive social media following that are completely unbeknownst to the management of teams. Indeed, So
let them at it. Sure, we're dealing with it. Years ago, I was going to dress and put away the phones, do whatever. And now it's a situation where the phone is there. And almost a limb in their body, speakers. You see teams going to the dressing room now with big speakers into the dressing room to listen to music beforehand. So before you'd be told, turn off that shite, turn it off now and concentrate in the game, But sure, the dressing room should be a place where you are relaxed, and off you go. So, but any management team are going to be facing. I'm lucky. I'm a secondary school teacher. I see the changes in society. I call teaching like the land of Tierna Dog. They stay the same age, but I get older. So it's just generation is changing, and it's also changing in jail.
Do you think it's important for a management team to understand that and to be able, at some level, I know we're joking about here about TikTok, but actually to be able to access the type of material, good and bad, that's coming the way of the players? Because if they're getting told constantly you're a great fella, but equally if they're getting told constantly you're a disaster, it takes a long time to be able to hold that at arm's length. I actually don't think anybody's ever always able to hold that stuff at arm's length. Everybody always says, I just let it run on. But actually, at some level, there's always somebody who can say something that just cuts you.
100%. I would have experienced it on Twitter. Twitter would have been the one for me, because obviously TikTok wasn't around or whatever like that, and Instagram or whatever. I went off Facebook. That was just because I was spending too much time in it. But you'd always come across a couple of comments. But for me, it was Twitter. So when I first started playing, I was flicking to Twitter after games, and then later on, I used to leave it off a couple of days, win, lose, draw, because it did. There was always a comment that pissed you off. Do you know what I mean? You could be after winning a game and some fool that you've never met that's had 2 followers, puts up a tweet and links you into it, and you're just like, oh my God. So there is a balance. The one thing about it is, that's the only worry I'd have about social media for players, whether they have social media or not. Once they're not offensive, we must learn from soccer here as well. And once they're not offensive on it, once they're not going on too much and offending opposition or themselves or being disrespectful to people, then they have it. They're going to have it anyway. And why are you handcuffing children and young fellas that are going to there's kids here in school that teach me about technology. I haven't. It's just a generational change, but it's the mind for me. It's being strong enough to realise that people could be building you up to be the best thing in the world, and then the next day knocking you down.
Yeah. So you feel like it's worth having that conversation with your teams? Yeah,
definitely. Because it's funny, we don't talk about much, and I try and distance it from our calls here. The 20s I'm with at the moment, but I was with UL Fitz, I was with the Cork 20s, I was with a school team here. They're all young fellas, they're all children still. to a certain degree. And it's just an educational talk on you know, the do's and don'ts, like, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like their parents are the people that look after them the most rather than us. We're there just to guide them as well, you know. It's like
people don't
you
listen
know,
to their
and
parents though, Anthony. I have to say, is my
yeah,
kids get to that
I do
stage
get
where
that. I do get that too. Like I do get that. Like, you know, don't worry. My 5-day-a-week job is teaching. Yeah, like it's just, look, I always think that you can't really go over the top and control their lives because they just won't react to you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So it's like tailored interjections from time to time to ask questions about what do you think the impact of this is going to be, and can we lead you to make better decisions. All right, so that was a wild tangent, but the team that has been named from Tipperary's perspective, I don't know if we expect it to be the team that takes the field, but it certainly, there seems to be a theme to the changes that have been made and announced, that it's going to be a physically intense game from Tipperary, and that they've picked a squad, they've picked a starting 15 specifically aimed at going toe-to-toe with Limerick, which is just interesting.
Yeah, go toe-to-toe at start and then maybe bring in the kind of reinforcements from the bench, like, do you know what I mean? Or as Pat Ryan referred to the Limerick lads as the bomb squad when he was on a month back or whatever like that. But going back to your earlier point, do we expect any team to start anymore? You know, that's been named. So, like, there's always going to be one or two bogey changes, like, and stuff from managers. So, but I can see, like, Liam is probably just looking and going, this is going to be ferocious for the first, and the way Liam wants to play it, it is going to be like that anyway. It's going to be ferocious for the first half, and then maybe 35-40 minutes into the game, you might have just fresher legs coming in and stuff like that. And that's why squads have become so important. Doesn't matter what team you're playing it, it's your bench that is actually going to make the difference between you being a good team and a great team. But it's going to be like, be it Liam Cahill, be it John Coyley, be it Limerick going out, Limerick going in, it's still Tipp and Limerick, like, you know, still going to be an unbelievable game of hurling. And Tipp, for the last few years, have shown that they're well able, even in the league, they're well able to put it up to Limerick. It's just whether they can consistently do it for the 70 minutes.
It does seem as if the physical players will start for Tipp, and then they'll look for pace later in the game.
Yeah.
And like when you say it pre-match, it sounds great. Obviously, the game will take on its own life, and whether or not those players who are coming off the bench are going to be able to have the specific type of impact that you want, it's going to be interesting. From Limerick's perspective, obviously, they've named Hegarty, they've named Lynch, and it's a really, really strong side. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that was the Limerick team, and Limerick are now going, okay, come on, let's be having you lads.
That is the Limerick team, I'd say. I'd be amazed if it isn't. There's obviously rumours going around Limerick. Some random tweet went up and that Gerard Hegarty had, you know, all but stabbed John Coyley. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just, that's the best Limerick team available to them at the moment. And what I like to see in the bench, having worked with Adam English, is that he's back in now. And fairness to John, he respected the Limerick 20s and he gave him Shane O'Brien and Adam English freely, like, you know. So Adam back in now is a big boost to the bench. And I think Mike Casey was the obvious choice. The one thing for me was whether they were going to flirt with Kyle Hayes going up the field. They still might, I don't know. But if that's the team, like, the biggest thing for us was Cian Lynch going to be fit? If Cian Lynch is fit, he's centre forward. It's as simple as that. And the 3-week gap seems to, well, we'll see on Sunday, but I believe will have helped them to recharge and reboot and go again. And we will find out what Limerick team comes out on Sunday. And you know what? We could be here next week going, right, that was it, they're back. You know what I mean? And I firmly, I believe that. I think Limerick are going to beat Tipperary on Sunday. I think the 3-week gap, I think the kind of rallying of the charges, all these rumours are brilliant for the likes of John Coyley. Like, he can use all this crap from the outside and get these guys going again. And but again, they'll focus on themselves. They'll know if they play to the best of their ability, they'll beat Tipperary.
Well, they're going to feel alive anyway, because it's do or die. Whatever about the complacency and the conversations and the, you know, we heard during the week that it was the players who decided that they wanted to go full bore for the league. And I don't know, I presume everybody has to have a say in that. But like, they've walked themselves into a do or die scenario. Nearly. It might not be, depending on the result in the Clare Cork game. But notwithstanding that, they're kind of they are backing themselves into a corner a little bit in the style of the Mayo footballers all those years, where it was like, when it matters, come back to us. And they're in that situation now where it can't be easy to be at your very best when your very best is some of the greatest stuff that we've ever seen week in, week out.
Like, the one thing I'll say, Waterford threw everything at him, right? I wouldn't say the Limerick were amazing on that, but Waterford threw everything at him, and I think that was actually not the downfall of Waterford, but like, it seemed to affect them going forward in the next week, and the momentum kind of died a death. they then lost to Clare by 1 point. You know what I mean? And we've had a 3-week gap, and there are people out there writing the obituaries of Limerick. We'll see on Sunday. I firmly believe Limerick will beat Tipperary on Sunday. And Tipperary people might be listening, going, that whatever. I won't use expletives, but I just think that they've played 2 games. Do you know what I mean? They lost one by a point and could have easily drawn it or won it or whatever. And all of a sudden it's kind of detrimental. Sean Finn's a huge loss. That's, to me, that's the biggest thing. Sean Finn's a huge loss, and they're fortunate to have Mike Casey coming in, of course. But apart from that, they have everyone else again. Do you know? And they have, the one thing I'll say about Limerick, winner of their best games being performed in the last number of years. Munster final performance against Clare, semi-finals and All-Ireland finals. Do or die games. And what are they facing them this weekend? A do or die game. And no better team to hand up and say Tipperary are better as they beat us if they do. But I just think that Limerick will just come out, and I think we'll see the normal Limerick. I won't even say the old Limerick. We'll see the normal Limerick back. And just the question is then, can Tipp hack it for 70 minutes and beat them?
Just to go back to the rumours, is it every GAA inter-county team that has these, but that obviously we hear the most high-profile ones because they're the All-Ireland champions? Would that have been common enough when you were playing that there would have been wild rumours sweeping? And what impact does it have? Because there's always somebody somewhere along the line who is did something happen? Did I miss something? Ireland likes to gossip. We're very gossipy.
Oh, yeah. Social media is the big driver. Again, I'm not going back to it again, but it's just Twitter. Twitter is amazing. Some random person can put up a tweet. Next thing you hear that, you see that, you see this, and boom, it grows smoke.
And WhatsApp, obviously. Yeah.
So you've got, that's the thing. And we love a good gossip, as you said. Do you know what I mean? We do love it. And especially when it involves, not only is it involving the All-Ireland champions, it's involving one of the best hurlers in the country who has, been left out of the team against Clare. Should all made perfect sense. No, maybe there's no smoke without fire either. Maybe something did happen or whatever like that. But geez, the legs that the story was getting was just hilarious, And it's as simple as this: one thing put it to bed. He's named on the team. He was training the whole time during it, so the talks of him being gone were funny. He was at training, he was training, but we still, do you know what? We prefer the old story than the truth sometimes, and we love to just keep passing it on,
Yeah, and I think all the great teams have always had a little bit of this that goes on around them, where somebody decides that they're going to try and take them down with a bit of malevolence, just out of badness. And I'm not talking about that in this instance, but certainly there would have been rumours about the Dubs constantly. There's always rumours about Kerry football. That's among, as Paddy said, he was, Paddy knew his people better than most people. What was it like in Cork? Was it different or was it the same?
Do you know, as I said to you last day, I joined the panel at the very end of the success, but there was always stories going around, about how training is going. This fella's out injured, that fella didn't turn up, this fella did this fella did that. But there was never any kind of, in the circle, it doesn't matter. You actually laugh about it.
Do you?
Do you know what I mean? You do, yeah. You do, yeah. Yeah, because it's rubbish. You're the guy, Gerard Hegarty, for example, right? Maybe there was something between himself and John. And you know what? There probably was. Gerard might have gone up to John and asked him why he wasn't playing or whatever. And next thing someone blew it out of proportion and all of a sudden, so these things happen. There's fights in training. You'd hear, did you hear that these Anthony Nash and Ger had a fight in training there the last day? It was huge. Yeah, there was a fight, but we had a couple of fisticuffs. What they didn't realise in after is, they were speaking in the dressing room. You see Sky Sports there. Premier League soccer players get into a fight. It's blowing up. It's all over Sky Sports News. 2 players fight, but sure, what happened after? Did they shake hands and just move on, So it's just rumours starting like that. But once you're within the circle, you laugh at it, because it's only rubbish.
Okay, so you said you think Limerick are going to beat Tipp this weekend because it's do or die.
Yeah.
Do you see a specific... Do you think we see Kyle Hayes in the forwards, or do you think it's just going to be the team largely as has been named, and it depends on players now playing at the level that they're used to, and they'll play the similar type of game that we've seen, that there's nothing, they're not going to change, they're actually going to go back to first principles as opposed to trying something in any way, an iteration of what we've seen before?
Yeah, they're a team that just say, look, if we get ourselves right and if we play to our potential, then bring it on, whoever the opposition are, and if you beat us, fair play to you. And I still think that they have the respect earned to be able to do that. You know what I mean? If they play to their best position, if all their big players play, if Gillan, you still have a full forward line of Flanagan, Gillan and Casey, Jesus, what more do you want to change? For me, is if Cian Lynch is fit, then Kyle Hayes stays at wing back. If Cian Lynch isn't fit and if the injury has held up with him, then I think Kyle Hayes will potentially move up. But if all those players that are named, and again, I'm not privy to anything, I don't know, but I'd be amazed if that team isn't what it is. And I think, as you said, just go back to basics here. What's won us the last number of All-Irelands, and let's just drive on again, because when they do turn up on their best, Jesus, like, not many teams have gotten close to them for a number of minutes, and obviously Clare in the Munster final last year, but not many team has kind of lived with them for the 70 plus minutes.
In terms of the Clare Cork game, again, this is going to be fever pitch in Ennis. I think Clare's recent form is making the Clare supporters very optimistic about what's coming for the rest of the year. And yeah, you know, it could still go pear-shaped for them too. That's the glory of the Munster Championship, and it's also the downside of it. But from Cork's perspective, there was great stuff in the game against Tipperary, and some other bits where you're like, I don't really understand what happened here. Well, so now with the dust settled a little bit on it, what did you make of Cork's performance against Tipp?
I thought Cork did very well to get a result out of the game. I thought that they'd have been licking their lips at the result, but not with the performance. I thought Tipperary out-hurled them in the middle third. In fairness to Cork, what I've liked is the consistency of work rate. They've had it. Just Tipperary's hurling around the middle third was so sharp, like they were moving that ball a lot faster than the Cork legs were carrying. And that's always the case. If you can move the ball at speed, no matter how hard the team work, if you can move it with speed and accuracy, they're not getting into the tackle zone. I just thought the likes of Noel McGrath around the middle third there was just, you know, he'd moved to the right place. Next, he'd been in a bit of space. The worry for Cork was this is kind of sounds ironic, right? That they needed 4 goals. You know what I mean? Like, Cork will score goals, but they mightn't always get 4. And score 4 goals and only get a draw shows that there was something there, you know. And I think it was just Tipp's dominance of possession in the middle third was a big thing, and how they utilised the sweeper. While Kieran Joyce won a lot of ball, I thought Ronan Maher was very involved in the game. And the other thing about is losing Robbie O'Flynn is a big loss as well. So I think Cork will have gone away and said, right, we're delighted to have three points on the board, but a huge amount to work on after the Tipperary game. And like, while Clare offer something different, they probably offer more aggressive pace and, you know, work rate and, you know, speed than Tipperary. Cork will still be looking at, like, how come we didn't win the middle third in that night?
And so what's the answer to that? How do you fix it?
Yeah, the games take on a life of themselves. You know, like, I was even talking to a fella there last night, like, and I was saying, like, you know, all Cork will have this guy midfield and that guy midfield. And I'm thinking, hold on a second, Cork will have 2 midfielders plus 2 half hours, potentially a centre forward. Like, it's actually getting possession and moving it out of that middle third. Senior inter-county hurling is in a life of its own at the moment. It's like, and I think that's why Davy was going with Waterford. He wanted to win that middle third so badly that he probably sacrificed his other players inside. Like, you're going to have the likes of David Fitzgerald, you're going to have the likes of Tony Kelly, you're going to have Colin Malone, you're going to have all these in the middle third. You need to make sure that you win possession in there and move it out of there more accurately. And is it a case of Luke Mead and Dara Fitzgibbon coming into the middle third and just leaving 2 inside, and, you know, then getting the ball to the delivery zone and getting it over their sweeper, who they'll have? Like, both teams will probably have a low-lying centre-back, like, you know what I mean, or a sweeper, whatever you want to call it, with the way bodies go to the middle. And it's just making sure that your positional sense with your defender is good and that you're able to gain possession in the middle third and carry it to the delivery zone, where the likes of Hoggy and be it Shamie Harnedy or whoever's inside get good accurate ball. No, come here, sure. Subutio, I'm just after explaining Subutio hurling to you. It's all beautiful on that green board as you look down, you move those little men around the place, but it's actually just making sure that you match the opposition's energy and effort in the middle third, and like, Cork need to hurl better, basically. Hurl, which we're always known for. I thought Tipperary out-hurled Cork. I won't say they outworked them, but they definitely out-hurled them in the middle third.
I'm a little bit confused about how the goals that Cork scored in the first half didn't force a reaction from Tipperary. And maybe this is because Tipperary have, like, firm belief in what they were doing, and it nearly carried the day. But you would have thought that with the 2 goals, so for people who didn't see, the first 2 goals that Cork scored in the first half of the game, they're from a run straight through the middle. And generally, when you concede goals like that, your natural reaction is to bring extra bodies back and to drop a little bit deeper to prevent that from happening again. But instead of doing that, they continued with dominating that middle third that you're talking about, and it nearly paid dividends for them. It was almost like they were, yeah, grand, you scored those 2 goals, but we're going to overwhelm you with our sheer force of numbers and the quality of our hurling.
Yeah, I'd like, so every inter-county managing team have a stats team, right? And Liam could have been fed stats down saying, like, we're absolutely destroying them here in the middle third, like, you know. And if you decide, so what would they have to do? Only take one player from that area and take him out, like. And it's like Pep Guardiola, like, you play 5 in midfield to dominate the midfield, and you play 4 in midfield or 3 in midfield and give up the midfield but strengthen up the other place. And that's why the game is like chess. Like, do you just go after one sector of the field and sacrifice the defence? And I'm sure Liam would have said, like, there's no way we're going to concede 4 goals here. But that's the one thing about Cork, and Clare have it too, is they have pace. Once you get out of that middle third with an overlap, well, then you're under pressure. And it's probably the one, if people could rate out of 10 all the skill, Tipperary's hurling would be 9 or a 10. Tipperary's pace might be 6 or a 7. You know what I mean? And then you're coming up against a Cork team that you could maybe be, you know, flip that over. Like, so it's very hard, like, to say, what will we do? Will we bring someone else back? And plus, for a lot of that game, Ronan Maher was actually sitting back, but it was just Cork's pace and numbers when they flooded forward seemed to just outnumber Tipp. But you have 2 similar styles coming up against each other now in Cork and Clare at the weekend, so the same things mightn't be there, where Clare mightn't have the same natural risky hurling, but they'll definitely have the aggression and the speed to carry the ball through the middle third.
So what's your instinct about how this game's going to go?
I think it's going to be exceptionally close. Like, I'm not sitting on the fence here. Regarding the draw, I wouldn't be surprised with a draw here. That's the God's honest truth. I hope with my Cork hat on that the consistency will come, and I just think that the one thing Cork will have that might trouble, I just think the Cork forward line, like Sean O'Donoghue being back for Cork is huge as well, right? So I think the Cork backs will match up. I do see. I look. It's not just my Cork hat, and I do see a cracking game of hurling that could go either way to get off the fence. I will say Cork will hopefully win by 1 or 2 points. There's Clare people are listening in going, that's just a Cork hat on, and it might be. But I like to see what Pat Ryan's doing with this team. And I just think that, like, the likes of Damien Callahan will pick up Peter Duggan. Either Niall O'Leary will pick up Mark Rogers or Sean O'Donoghue, and then someone is. The big question for me actually is, what are they going to do with Tony Kelly? You know, what's the job with Tony Kelly? Are they going to go after him? Or are they going to leave him out into that middle third they talked about and try and pick him up out there? And that's always the case with Clare, like, you know. And Clare need him to get back to his brilliant best. They've been brilliant, you know, without his overriding influence. But if he gets back to himself, then Cork lose, like.
Yeah, Waterford didn't do a great job on Tony Kelly last week, obviously. What would you do if you were in that selection decision conversation all week long and you're thinking, okay, how do we solve a problem like Tony Kelly? What's your instinct?
You have to mark him, really. You know, the way he's so influential to that team. Like, no, again, you asked me there a second ago, why didn't Tipperary react to the middle third and drop a guy back? Like, and if you're sending someone after Tony Kelly, you're sending a defender out. You're probably playing 5-5. But I don't know how you create someone else and maybe target a week. Do you give up a sweeper to Clare and keep your centre back? But I just don't think with Tony's influence on the field and also with the crowd that you can allow him to be, you know, on his own. The dream scenario here, right? The dream scenario is if you have a disciplined enough team where you have, for example, a Will O'Donoghue who spots him coming over his shoulder and, you know, keep him in the zone and make sure you're marking him. Well, then that's the dream scenario because you can keep your centre back. But I don't know that many teams are we able to do that anymore. You know, any team able to do that, but for me, he has to be tagged.
Okay, so a slight leaning towards Cork, which may be natural. Which may just be bias. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then a win for Limerick, which leaves us very delicately poised for the last weekend of games as well. So our last couple of weekends of games, plenty to look forward to. Anthony, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million, Ger. Fair play.
Hurling, it's anyone's game. Off the Ball has teamed up with the Senior Hurling Championship sponsors Gosh Energy to uncover stories highlighting the positive impact that hurling has had on people's lives. This week's competition winner, which is obviously hosted by our good friends at Gosh Energy, is Paul Condon. Paul's from Round Towers Hurling and Camogie Club in Kildare. The club have started their own junior adult hurling team and had their first match recently, so a big shout out to Paul for telling his story, and best of luck for the rest of the season. If you want to get involved in that competition, then just check out our social. We've got details on it there, and also make sure you stay tuned to the show across the week. Brilliant prizes up for grabs, including tickets to the All-Ireland final at the end, and we'll obviously be playing the winners as we go later on. Now, that is hurling for this week. Plenty more to come on the show. Stay tuned.
Hurling on Off the Ball
with Gosh Energy. Hurling, it's anyone's game.